School of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course 007 Business Communication for MBA program. Presenting Block 1 Introduction to Communication, Unit 2 Process of Communication, Part 2. In Part 2, we will learn about interpersonal barriers and organizational barriers. Let's listen to Part 2.
Interpersonal barriers. Intrapersonal barriers are caused by an individual's attitudes or habits, whereas interpersonal barriers are caused by the limited communication abilities of either coder, decoder, or both. Furthermore, they may arise as a result of a disruption in the communication route or medium. When two people are communicating, the features that define them as individuals might be the source of a communication gap. In a business environment, we neither attempt to change these traits nor can we do it. However, we can try and understand how differences in individual traits cause communication gaps. The most common causes of interpersonal barriers are: first, limited vocabulary; second, incompatibility of verbal and non-verbal messages; third, emotional outburst; fourth, communication selectivity; fifth, cultural variations; sixth, poor listening skills; seventh, noise in the channel. Limited vocabulary. Inadequate vocabulary can be a big communication barrier. We occasionally find ourselves looking for the perfect word or phrase that best expresses what we want to say. If we fumble for words during a speech, it will leave a poor impression on the audience. On the other hand, having a large and broad vocabulary can help us make a good impression on our listeners. Incompatibility of verbal and non-verbal messages. Non-verbal clues provide a deeper insight into a sender's message. Ignoring or misinterpreting non-verbal clues might lead to the message being entirely misinterpreted. As a result, not only should one strive to read others' non-verbal clues, but one should also be mindful of one's own body language. Generalizations based on assumptions about physical appearance or dress can also lead to severe communication barriers. Physical appearance often serves as one of the most important non-verbal clues. One can follow certain guidelines to improve the physical appearance to give a strong impression. These can be: first, dress appropriately for the event; second, keep your clothing tidy and clean; third, choose a suitable hairstyle; fourth, wear clean and polished shoes. Emotional outburst. In most cases, a moderate level of emotional involvement intensifies communication. Excessive emotional engagement, on the other hand, might be a communication barrier. Extreme rage, for example, might create an emotionally charged environment in which reasonable debate is difficult. Likewise, prejudice, stereotyping, and boredom all hinder effective communication. Positive emotions such as happiness and excitement also interfere in communication, but to a much lesser extent than negative feelings. Emotions are an integral part of our being, whether in business or personal encounters. By sharpening self-awareness, intention, and empathy, emotions can help in developing an environment that is highly conducive to good communication. Yet, situations do arise where people react negatively. Depending on their nature and the situation, this negative reaction may be classified as hostile or defensive. Both reactions occur when the receiver of the message perceives some kind of threat. Hostility can be considered as a move to counter-attack the threat, whereas defensiveness is resistance to it. It is important to maintain one's composure in all kinds of communication. Viewing issues from different perspectives helps develop objectivity and rational thinking, which in turn can eliminate many of the causes of hostility or defensiveness. Communication selectivity. Communication selectivity is a barrier imposed by the recipient in a communication process when she or he pays attention to only a portion of the message. This happens because she or he is interested only in that part of the message which may be of use to him or her. In this case, the sender is not to blame. The receiver is the one who interrupts the flow of communication. Take, for example, a meeting held by the CEO of a company. She or he has called all her or his senior executives from various divisions, that is, production, marketing, finance, and human resource. She or he addresses a variety of subjects during the meeting. However, until she or he has each participant's complete attention, she or he may not be able to get the entire point over. If the production manager and the marketing manager focus solely on their respective divisions, they may not be able to have a comprehensive understanding of the CEO's message. Such a situation creates the gap between the different divisions, in turn resulting in less productivity. Take, for example, a meeting held by the CEO of a company. She or he has called all his or her senior executives from various divisions, that is, production, marketing, finance, and human resource. She or he addresses a variety of subjects during the meeting. However, until she or he has each participant's complete attention, she or he may not be able to get the entire point over. If the production manager and the marketing manager focus solely on their respective divisions, they may not be able to have a comprehensive understanding of the CEO's message. Such a situation creates the gaps between different divisions, in turn resulting in less productivity. Cultural variations. This is one of the most predominant interpersonal factors contributing to communication failure. As businesses are crossing national boundaries to compete on a global scale, the outlook of the global and domestic workforce has changed drastically. European, Asian, and American firms have expanded their business worldwide to create international ties through partnerships, collaborations, and affiliations. The management and employees of such organizations need to closely observe the laws, customs, and business practices of their host countries, like dealing with their multinational workforce. To compete successfully in such a business environment, one must overcome the communication inadequacy arising due to different languages and cultures. Poor listening skills. Poor listening habits are a frequent communication barrier. It is important to keep in mind that listening and hearing are not the same thing. Hearing is a passive activity, whereas listening involves deliberate attention and correct decoding of the speaker's information. Misunderstandings and disputes can be avoided if individual pays close attention to the message. The various distractions that hinder listening can be emotional disturbances, indifferences, aggression, and wandering attention. Sometimes an individual is so engrossed in his or her thoughts and worries that she or he is unable to concentrate on listening. If a superior goes on shifting the eye contact with the latter, she or he pays divided attention to the speaker's message. This divided attention adversely affects the superior-subordinate relationship besides distorting the communication. Noise in the channel. Any undesirable signal that obstructs communication is referred to as noise. It is not restricted to oral disruptions but may also take the shape of visual, audiovisual, textual, bodily, or psychological manifestations. Each of these kinds of noise transmit additional information that might distract from the message and even upset the receiver. Technical or physical noise refers to the din of machines, the blare of the music from the stereo system, or other such sounds which make it difficult for the listener to hear. Human noise can be experienced when a latecomer arrives at a meeting, distracting everybody's attention. Disturbance in mobile and fixed line communication to weak or nil signal strength, poor acoustic of a room, badly typed and edited documents, and illegible handwriting are some more examples of technical noise. Organizational barriers. Communication obstacles exist not just between individuals or between two persons, but also inside organizations. Every company, regardless of size, has its own communication strategies and must operate under its own communication environment. In a large organization where the flow of communication is downward, feedback is not guaranteed. Organizations with a flat structure usually tend to have an intricately knit communication network. Irrespective of size, all organizations have communication policies which describe the protocol to be followed. It is the structure and complexity of this protocol that usually causes communication barriers. A majority of large corporations are discovering that a rigid hierarchical structure restricts communication. It is due to the multiple transfer points in these hierarchical systems' communication flow. This is due to the multiple transfer points in these hierarchical systems' communication flow, which can cause the message to be distorted, delayed, or lost. To avoid these, there should preferably be a sender-receiver contact, or the message should be transmitted with minimum transfer stations. The main organizational barriers are: first, too many transfer stations; second, fear of superiors; third, negative tendencies; fourth, use of inappropriate media; fifth, information overload. Too many transfer stations. The more links there are in a communication chain, the greater are the chances of miscommunication. Imagine, for instance, that your professor asks you to convey a message to X. You, because of some inconvenience or sheer laziness, ask your friend Y to do this job. Now, there are 4 people involved in this communication channel. Let us see how the message gets distorted as a result of the increased number of transfer stations. Professor: X was supposed to meet me today regarding the submission of an assignment on business communication. But I want X to meet me on Friday as I am going out of station tomorrow. You, to your friend Y, ask X to meet the professor tomorrow regarding the assignment as the professor is going out of station today. Your friend Y to X: X, You have to meet the professor today as she or he will not be available tomorrow. This is an example of how messages gets distorted in large organizations with several layers of communication channels. The message gets distorted at each level not only because of poor listening or lack of concentration, but also because of several other reasons. Some employees may filter out parts of the message they consider unimportant. Whatever the reasons for filtering or distorting the messages, having too many transfer stations is also an obstacle to effective communication and should be avoided. Transfer stations do serve a purpose, but having too many of them is counterproductive. Fear of superiors. Fear or awe of superiors hinders subordinates from speaking openly in this strictly organized organization. Some employees may avoid any conversations with their superiors in order to avoid speaking directly to their employer. At the other extreme, they may present all the information that they have, feeling that they may be censored for leaving out some information which may be vital in the superior's eye. This results in voluminous reports with critical information mingled with irrelevant elements in written communication. Such unfocused messages result in a lot of wasted time. Negative tendencies. Many organizations create work groups. While some groups are formed according to the requirements of the task on hand, such as completing a particular work project, other small groups are also formed for recreational, social, or community purposes. These groups may be formal or informal and generally consists of people with similar values, beliefs, behavior, attitudes, and opinions. Nevertheless, sometimes a conflict between members and non-members of a group result in a communication barrier. The student members of the sports club of an educational institution may be annoyed with non-student members who create obstacle in allocation of more funds for sports equipment. This type of opposition give rise to inside-outsider equations and paves the way for negative tendencies in the organization. Use of inappropriate media. While choosing the medium for a particular occasion, the advantages, disadvantages, and potential barriers to communication must be considered. While deciding the medium, such as phones, emails, computer presentations, teleconferencing, and video conferencing, the following factors should be considered. First, time. Second, type of message. Third, cost. Fourth, intended audience. For example, the telephone is not a good medium for delivering sensitive information. Such communications are best delivered in person or by private chat messenger if the receiver is in another office. For information that has to be recorded and retrieved in the future, printed letters are preferred since they are permanent. Effective communication usually requires a combination of mediums such as an email followed by a phone conversation. Information overload. One of the most serious issues confronting businesses today is the loss of efficiency caused by the manual processing of enormous amounts of data. Information overload is the term for this situation. The usual results of information overload are fatigue, disinterest, and boredom. Under these circumstances, further communication is not possible. Important and essential information is frequently mixed in with too many irrelevant data and overlooked by the receiver. As a result, information quality is far more essential than quantity. To reduce information overload in an organization, screening of information is a must. Messages should be directed only to those people who are likely to be benefit from the information. Major points must be highlighted, leaving out all irrelevant details. Summary. In this unit, we have learned the ways to communicate. This can be one way or two ways. We have understood the process of human communication, which helps in avoiding the pitfalls which take place at the time of communication. The unit discusses the linear concept of communication, which tries to address 5 basic questions and is a one-way process in which the sender sends the message to the receiver without getting feedback. The second model which was discussed is the Shannon-Weaver model, where it was found that during the process of communication, the message can be blocked and therefore feedback was introduced. Later on, the unit discusses the two-way process of communication. The unit also discusses the barriers of communication, which can be intrapersonal, interpersonal, and organizational barriers. The unit ends with a discussion of all the aspects of the process of communication through a case study.
You are listening to audiobook by School of Management Studies, IGNOU, for MBA program. Course code MMPC-007, Business Communication, Unit 2, Part-2. Course Coordinator, Professor Neeti Agrawal from School of Management Studies, IGNOU. Voiceover by Santosh Bharati. Edited by Tarannum Jahan. Program assisted by Jagbandhu Jana. And program produced by Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.